to fucking take it. So few have privilege and the others do not. Like,
Right.
so it's just crazy.
So we're gonna go into like looking into water rights.
Water rights?
Yeah.
You go to your county clerks. So the counties themselves were actually the ones that took land away from indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't states that did it. It was counties. And
Okay.
those counties also took the water rights, right? And so you want to look into the deed of the property that you live on and see who's got the water rights to it.
Yeah.
But that's going to be written right in your deed, the deed of your home.
Well, a little tricky. So my grandparents, on dad's side, they owned a ranch out in Jordan,
Okay.
and they bought water rights to it.
Okay. And never sold them?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
So
But
you have to find
Jason-
you have to find that information out. That's what I would look for. I'd look for the deed of the house, right?
Uh-huh.
And then look for the water rights. It should have like some kind of citation or water right number, like this is water rights 115695 or whatever it is. And then you find that and you kind of see like where it was sold at. If it was sold, if it's not sold, then you have rights to it. You would have to go through probate, what's called probate, meaning that you have to go through. You need to hire a lawyer and have them argue. But if it did go through probate and they didn't issue it to your cousin or your aunt or your uncle, which most likely is what would happen, usually when someone passes, and they own like stuff like that, it gets passed. If they don't have a trust, which is why you should always establish a trust if you have something like that for your family. You should never like just have a will. You should have a trust so it like goes right down the line without having to go through probate at all.
Loopholes and stuff like that.
Go through probate at all. I mean, the probate means that the state actually owns it for that second, and no one owns it at that moment until they give it to you. Because no land is owned by anybody. It's owned by the United States of America. That's it. That's the only person that can own land is them. The rest of the people think they own land, but they don't actually own it. Even the state thinks they own land, but really they're just renting it. It's written in the Constitution like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the United States, only the United States can own land. And that's exactly why you have like indigenous lands that are being held in trust. And that's why they're on the same level as states. States' land is held in trust. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a person can't own land. They just think they do because they during their lifetime they have stewardship of that land. It's not ownership. It's stewardship, meaning that they have the ability to stay on that land, improve that land. You know what I'm saying? And pay for that land. As soon as they stop paying, improving, or living, it's no longer their land. The state will take it back immediately, and that's what happens when you pass on. It's called probate. The state says, okay, this was where you were stewarding, and maybe you paid it off, so you have a deed, but it's not an deed of ownership. You know what I'm saying? It's not like ownership in the sense that it's the own. You're saying you're the owner. It's a sense of you're a steward of this land, meaning that you will take care of it as to the rest of your ability, and if you don't, then yeah, exactly said, they'll just take you back.
And you're going to take it back.
The only way to get around that, the only one way to get around that is by, and you can't really do that either because as soon as you get a EIN number, you're part of the system already. So you can't get a business license and do it, which would be most of the workaround for some of the stuff. But because the business license is issued by the state, which is issued by the United States, you know what I'm saying, you're in the system already. They're part of it. So as soon as that's what privilege is all about. So as soon as you agree to their system, you gain privilege. But as soon as you gain privilege, you actually you're given shackles compared. You know what I'm saying, in the form of freedom. You know what I'm saying? Like, because as soon as you get that business license, you're like, I got a business license. I own something.
Right.
Well, no, you're actually part of the system that says you own something, but you really can't own anything. It's why they can take someone's business away from them, or tax them and take their business, or do all those things because you're not actually the owner of that business. You're just a steward of that business. You're just a steward of that resources that you have at the time because you agreed to certain things that gave you privilege, right?
Right.
It just feels like liberation. But yet you're doing all the work and yet you don't own anything. You get to use it while you're here, and then when you die, you pass it back on to probate, which means the state gets it. And they get to decide what to do with it, unless you do a family trust. And then it's just passed on. Mind you, that doesn't change much. It's just you're passing the stewardship down to your family because that's the best step. That's the best thing you can do besides all the alternatives, right? All the alternatives are kind of fail in comparison. Because think about it, if you do a will, you can't, you're passing on to your next of kin, but you have to go through the state. It has to go back to the state and then passed on to your kin, right? A trust is something that is like, think about it like a boat, right?
Okay.
That boat can go through a waterway and then it can move on to the next waterway without having to get out the ocean, like you get out of the body of water.
Yeah.
A will, though, will have to get out of the water, it's like a canoe, right?
Okay.
It will get out of the water, you have to drag it to the next body of water and then put it back in the water.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Now you can use
Now you
that
can
boat
use-
again. Yeah,
right.
exactly. So that's kind of those two things work. So there's but either way though, it's the lakes and the river and the water is not our river or water to own. We're just using it. We're just boating on top of it. We're just technically under the way that the laws are written. It's not ours.
Okay.
And they've done that with everything. And even the rainwater is the property of the United States of America. It's not property of us, the person who collects it or whatever. It's the state property, and anything that's the state's property is actually not the state's property. It's federal property. The guys that set up the system were pretty smart about it. They thought it through for sure. They took some time to like think about how the system would function,
right,
and how that it would benefit a certain people and not benefit other people, so that people are subservient to others in a way that becomes privilege, right? So it was originally written blatantly written, right? Like 3/4 of a person, or like the savage is not able to get citizenship. But since then, they've gotten less and less blatant about it and more secretive about it. And so you can see this with the way that they try to give out funds. Well, those funds are ours. You know what I'm saying? Like all the taxation that happens is the American people's, but there's a certain amount of people that, like the people that we elect, that's up there saying what should go on with that, you know what I'm saying, monies.
Right.
But they clown on people that are on Social Security or like SNAP benefit, but yet that same pot of money is what's paying their fucking salary, and they get benefits for life for doing a 4-year term. But originally in the Constitution, it was written that they would get stipends, not salary. They wouldn't get insurance. The point of being a representative was to represent your community and then come back to the community and provide insight and teachings to that community so that they can, be better and have more resources. It wasn't just sit there for fucking damn near 100 years and just have somebody pay your next election so that you'll do whatever they want you to do. It wasn't set up like that, and nor should it be set up that way now. It should only be 1-term limit. That's it. So as many people as we possibly can have are able to go in there and share their ideas, share the concepts, share their insights. And so what happens is you get this is how originally was written. You get way more inclusive bills, way more inclusive perspectives, and you get a way more community-driven results, because the fact is you have more voices in the pot. And anytime you have more voices in the pot, you have a more collective outcome. But that's not what's going on. Someone at some point was like, no, we should just have as many terms as we want to. If they win, they win. Well, the system's not set up for everybody to win. The system's set up for the people that have backing, money, and to win, right? And so that's not right. That's not how the system was. That's not how our founding fathers thought about it, doing it. At least like most of them. Some of them were probably thought about it doing it the way that it is now. Greedy people. In fact, there was a story about how they one of the first, before the Constitution was written, they were figuring out how small states and large states could have the ability to have even weight distribution as far as like voice goes, because the big states automatically, if they just did the House of Representatives, would have more say so in the votes and in the laws, right? Because they have more people there, and the more people you have, the more House of Representative votes you have. Right. And so the smaller states were like, oh, well, that's not fair. And so what they did was they established the Senate, which every state gets 2. That's it. And so the Senate and the House, they kind of go against each other, meaning that they check each other, meaning that if it passes the House, it also has to go past the Senate. Then once it gets passed up by both the House and the Senate, then it gets moved up to the president to sign. And then if the president signs it and the judicial system, the judicial branch wants to look at it or doesn't think it's legal based on the Constitution, it can interpret it as non-constitutional and then void that bill. That's the balance system supposed to be set up like that.
Okay.
But right now we have a system that is, you have Republicans that have, you know what I'm saying, this one ideology and owns or has all of the branches of government underneath its wings, meaning they have more say-so in each one of those branches. They have more Republicans or House of Representatives, they have more senators, they have more judicial people, and they have the presidency. And so they literally can do whatever they want because there's no way to not have their like bills passed. And in fact, like if they were to go against it, I'm sure that they would get ousted because the people would that have the money and the power would oust them, right? And so like if you want to get reelected again, this system of reelection is what's is kicking us in the ass right now. Because if we didn't have this system of reelection, there wouldn't be any reason for people to be scared of where they voted at, right? There wouldn't be any reason to fucking not vote the way your constituents would want you to vote. So the only reason why it's like that is because we have this multi-year term system in place.
Right.
And it will continue to be that way until we remove that system and realize we have millions of people, yet we have the opinion of maybe 100,000 people, probably less than that, that run the whole government. Like 100,000 people is not a big enough, it's probably less than that, probably maybe 20,000 people. Do not have the voice of the people. You can't have 20,000 people represent 200 million people.
Right, there's no way.
It just isn't a big enough sample size for all voices to be heard.
Right.
And in fact, we should set up a system that does that based on sample size, meaning how big of like a government body do we need to really represent everybody that's living in this country now? Because at the time, it was a perfect representative of the country's need because there was less people.
Right.
Less diversity. In fact, there was a lot less diversity. Yeah. But now there's a lot more people with a lot more diversity, and so more voices need to be heard and placed into a place where they can be heard. And so we should rethink the Constitution in a way that, not to like rewrite it, rewrite it, but like in a way that's more inclusive, right? Like in a way that represents what our country looks like now.
That's true.
And so as soon as we do that, as soon as we can vote to do that, it's not a tearing down of the U.S., it's a revamping of what it needs. So the way that works too is like every 250 years you have the power the power of the world changes hands. So 2 cycles ago was Denmark, okay? Before that was, you know what I'm saying, you had the Roman era. Then you fast forward, you had German Germanic tribes that took over after Rome. Okay, and then after German Germanic tribes took over, you literally have Denmark that took over, and then from Denmark you have Europe. So not Europe, but England, right? And after England was us, and so for the last 250 years we've been in control of the world's powers, and so that's kind of how it works. Every 250 years you have a changing of the guard, if you will.
Okay.
And so why is that important? Because now we've reached our 250-year limit, and either we change something or we, like every other superpower in the world, get replaced. And China's going to be the one that replaces us, because every time you have a superpower that gets replaced, it's always because of one thing. It's because they took their manufacturing and outsourced it to another country, and all of the resources that were going to that country, and the cheap labor force and all that stuff is why they became the world power in the first place, is gone. It's evaporated, and now they're just a shell of their former selves, and they're just bloated because they keep issuing money to try to maintain the lifestyle, but no one's willing to work hard anymore because they all have privilege, and that privilege then becomes a trap. It's a trap to not work as hard, not have to be as hungry, not have to be like, tenacious, not have to be all those things, and so that's the issue. It's always been the issue, is that And so what happens is you have the next world power take over, and for 150 years they really excel, and then all of a sudden they get lazy and they get complacent, and they get the same system happens. Same thing happens again for that country, and it's been going on forever since the beginning of time. What's interesting about that also is that 250 years represents 2 cycles of 7 generations, basically.
Okay.
And so, because 7 generations live about 150 years, so it's almost 2 cycles.
Gotcha.
It could almost be 1 cycle too. 250 years could be covered technically by 7 generations. Think about it.
Right. Yeah.
250 years is about the cycle of 7 generations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's important to realize that. Also, that plays a factor in all of it. Because just the people you will see in this lifetime. You can see your great-great-grandma,
Mm-hmm.
grandma, parents, you, your kids, your kids' kids, or your kids' kids,
Right.
and your kids' kids' kids. That's the only people you'll ever be able to see in your life. There's no way that you're going to see more than those people. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Even if you're blessed and you have lived a super long life, the likelihood that you're going to see your kids' kids' kids
Yes.
is slim.
Right.
Like, because it takes, unless you have kids having kids at 15, which it happens,
Right.
you could potentially see an 8th generation. But for the most part, people don't see the 8th generation, and they stop at 7. That's why the 7th generation is so influential for natives, and also why they were ahead of their time at the time. Why their ideology and the way they thought about life was way ahead of like the European culture and the way that they thought about life. So